Hey y'all, it's Larry. Howdy folks, Larry's my name and prepping's my game. See, life down here in the South, it throws you curveballs. Sometimes those curveballs are shaped like hurricanes with names like Katrina. Now Katrina, she was something else. Tore through our town like a raccoon in a dumpster. We were lucky, our house was mostly spared. But the grocery stores? Wiped out, gone fishing as they say. That's when my prepper pantry, it went from Larry's a little too prepared to Larry's a lifesaver in the eyes of my family. For 2 whole months we lived off what we had stored. Canned goods, dried fruits, you name it, we ate it. So y'all come along with me now, and I'll tell you how we made it through those 2 months on nothing but pantry food. You might just learn a thing or two about prepping yourself. So Katrina's blowing through, trees are doing the twist, and I'm sweating like a sinner in church. But you know what? I wasn't panicking. Nope, because I knew we had that pantry. We call it the Hurricane Vault. My wife, bless her heart, she used to roll her eyes at all my prepping. But when the wind died down and we opened that pantry door, her eyes weren't rolling anymore. They were wide as dinner plates. It was like looking into a grocery store that time forgot. We had enough canned goods to feed a small army: corn, green beans, tomatoes, peaches, you name it. We had it in a can. My wife, she's hugging me tight saying, "Larry, you're a lifesaver." First few days we ate like kings. Well, kings on a budget, lots of beans. Black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans. You could say we saw the world through bean-colored glasses for a while. Now I know what you're thinking. Larry, that sounds a mite boring. And yeah, it wasn't exactly gourmet dining. But let me tell you, when you're staring down the barrel of an empty stomach, those beans start looking mighty good. We spiced things up a bit, literally. Hot sauce, chili powder, anything to give those beans some personality. We even had one night where we made bean burgers. The kids, bless their hearts, they weren't thrilled about the bean-heavy menu at first. Now, we weren't all about beans. Remember those dried fruits I mentioned? We had enough dried apricots, prunes, and raisins to last us till kingdom come. My wife, she got real creative with those. Made something she called hurricane fruit salad. It was basically just a bunch of dried fruit, chopped up with some nuts and honey. But you know what? It was actually pretty darn tasty. And it kept us regular, which is more than I can say for those beans. Now y'all know you can't survive on beans and dried fruit alone. The real MVP of our pantry survival story? Water. Plain old H2O. See, before the hurricane hit, I made sure we had enough bottled water to float a battleship. Okay, maybe not a battleship, but you get the picture. We're talking gallons upon gallons, stored in every nook and cranny. And let me tell you, when the power went out and those faucets ran dry, that water was more precious than gold. We even collected rainwater in buckets and boiled it. Hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. We used it for drinking, cooking, even brushing our teeth. But the point is, we had water, and that's what kept us going. After a while, though, a man can only eat so many beans. We started getting a little desperate for variety. That's when I remembered something my grandpappy used to say. When life gives you potatoes, you plant them. We had a bag of potatoes that were sprouting eyes like crazy. So we cleared out a patch of dirt in the backyard and planted those spuds. It was a long shot, I know, but we were desperate for something green and fresh. We watered them with our precious rainwater and prayed for a miracle. And wouldn't you know it, those little green shoots started popping up out of the ground. Now, I ain't no chef, but even I gotta admit, eating the same thing day in and day out can get a little old. We had to get creative. Luckily, my wife's a whiz in the kitchen. She could make a gourmet meal out of a can of Spam and a prayer. She started experimenting with different spices and sauces. We found an old bottle of hot sauce in the back of the pantry, and let me tell you, that stuff was a lifesaver. We put it on everything. Beans, rice, even those dried apricots. Don't knock it till you try it. It wasn't much, but it made all the difference. We had our share of tough times, though. I remember the day the crackers ran out. Those saltine crackers were like currency in our house. We used them for everything: snacks, makeshift bread for our bean burgers, even as spoons when we ran out of clean silverware. So when we got down to the last sleeve, it was a dark day indeed. My youngest, little Kevin, he burst into tears. "What are we going to do without crackers?" he wailed. I patted him on the head and told him we'd figure something out. We started making our own crackers out of flour and water. Now, y'all know a body can't survive on carbs alone, even if they are expertly spiced by my wife. We needed protein, and we needed it bad. The first couple of weeks, we made do with canned tuna and chicken, but those cans were dwindling faster than a gator in a chicken coop. That's when we got desperate. We started hunting squirrels in the backyard. Now, I ain't talking about no fancy hunting trip with rifles and camouflage. This was more like urban survival hunting. We used slingshots and BB guns, anything we could get our hands on. We managed to get a few, enough for a couple of meals. My wife, bless her heart, even managed to make squirrel stew palatable. Remember those potatoes we planted? Well, they were thriving. Turns out, a little neglect is all a potato needs to flourish. We were soon pulling up enough spuds to feed a family twice our size. But we didn't stop there. We planted everything we could get our hands on: tomato plants, beans, squash, even a watermelon vine or two. Our backyard transformed into a regular Garden of Eden. The kids, they took to gardening like ducks to water. They loved getting their hands dirty, planting seeds and watching them grow. It was a good life lesson, I reckon. Now, I ain't one to brag, but I've always been a bit of a wheeler and dealer. And in the aftermath of Katrina, those skills came in handy. See, everyone was in the same boat, low on supplies and desperate for something different. So we started bartering. We'd trade our surplus potatoes for some of our neighbors' canned peaches. Or we'd swap some of our garden-fresh tomatoes for a few eggs from their chickens. It was like something out of the Wild West. Only instead of saloons and shootouts, we had front porches and friendly negotiations. We even managed to barter our way into a few gallons of gasoline. Now, I ain't gonna lie, living off the pantry for 2 months straight wasn't all sunshine and roses. We had our fair share of tough times. There were days when I couldn't stomach the thought of another bean, no matter how creatively my wife prepared it. And don't even get me started on the day we ran out of coffee. We called it pantry fatigue, that feeling of weariness and boredom that sets in when you've been eating the same things day in and day out. But we found ways to cope. We'd have themed dinners, like Mexican night with black beans and rice, or Italian night with canned tomatoes and pasta. It wasn't much, but it broke up the monotony and gave us something to look forward to. Y'all, let me tell you, after a while, even the best beans start to taste like, well, more beans. Don't get me wrong, I love my beans. But a man needs some variety, you know what I'm saying? We were running low on salt, pepper, hot sauce, the whole shebang. It was getting dire. One day I was rummaging through the pantry looking for anything to jazz up our dinner of, you guessed it, beans. And I stumbled upon a dusty box in the back. Inside, my Meemaw's old spice collection. Now, Meemaw, she was a woman who believed in flavor. She had every spice imaginable in that box, from allspice to za'atar. We realized then that survival ain't just about having enough food, it's about making that food something you actually want to eat. Now, food's one thing, but a man's got to keep his spirits up too, right? Especially when you're stuck inside with your family for weeks on end. We had board games, but after the 100th round of Monopoly, even the dog was hiding. The kids were climbing the walls, literally. We had to find something to keep them entertained. That's when we instituted entertainment rations. See, we had a stash of old DVDs and VHS tapes. Yeah, I know, old school, tucked away in the attic. Every night, we'd gather round and watch a movie or two. It became a family ritual, a way to escape the reality of our situation for a couple of hours and just lose ourselves in a good story. It was a great way to bond as a family and forget about our troubles for a while. Let me tell you, kids are resilient little critters. They adapted to our pantry-based lifestyle quicker than I did. In fact, they started seeing it as an adventure. Empty cans became building blocks for forts, cardboard boxes transformed into spaceships and submarines. My wife, she's a natural-born teacher, started using our situation to teach them about resourcefulness and creativity. They learned how to make their own toys and games, how to entertain themselves without relying on electronics or store-bought gadgets. It was a beautiful thing to witness, seeing their imaginations run wild. We'd have invention contests where they'd come up with all sorts of crazy contraptions using whatever they could find around the house. One day, my son, little Kevin, rigged up a system using a pulley and some string to turn the pages of his comic book without using his hands. Now, I ain't gonna lie, those 2 months after Katrina were some of the toughest of our lives. We ate a whole lot of beans, got real familiar with the inside of our pantry, and learned just how resourceful we could be when we had to be. But looking back, I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. It taught us a lot about ourselves, about family, and about the importance of being prepared. See, prepping ain't about living in fear, waiting for the world to end. It's about taking control of your destiny, about having peace of mind knowing that you and your loved ones are ready for whatever life throws your way. It's about respecting the power of nature and knowing that sometimes the best laid plans go out the window when a hurricane comes knocking. But most importantly, it's about the stories you can tell afterwards, about how you faced adversity head on and came out stronger on the other side. And let me tell you, those stories, they're worth their weight in gold, or maybe even a can of pickled okra or two. Now I know what you're thinking. Larry, all this prepping sounds great, but where do I even start? Well, fret not, my friend, because Larry's got your back. Here's my top 5 must-haves for any prepper pantry, whether you're facing a hurricane, a zombie apocalypse, or just a particularly nasty case of the Mondays. I can't stress this enough, folks. Water is life. Aim for 1 gallon per person per day for at least 3 days. Trust me, you'll thank me later. Stock up on canned fruits, veggies, soups, beans, you name it. Get a can opener that doesn't require electricity, just in case. And don't forget the protein. Canned tuna, chicken, even Spam. Hey, don't judge. We'll do in a pinch. Rice, beans, oats, lentils, these are your new best friends. They last forever. Well, almost. And can be used in a million different ways. Get yourself some airtight containers to keep them fresh. A little flavor goes a long way, folks. Salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, these are your pantry essentials. Hot sauce is non-negotiable in my book. And don't forget the honey. It's a natural sweetener and can last for years. Don't forget the little things that'll keep your spirits up during a crisis. Coffee, tea, chocolate, hard candy. These are your morale boosters, your pick-me-ups when the going gets tough. Now, I ain't saying you gotta go full-on doomsday prepper and build a bunker in your backyard, though if you got the space, why not? But I am saying that a little bit of preparedness goes a long way. Think of it as a gift you give yourself and your loved ones, the gift of peace of mind. Because when the unexpected happens, and trust me it will, you'll be glad you took the time to prepare. You'll be the one with the full pantry, the one with the water filter, the one with the extra can of beans to share with your neighbor. And that, my friends, is a powerful feeling. So go forth and be prepared. Stock those pantries, learn those survival skills, and most importantly, don't forget to have a little fun along the way. Because when life throws you a curveball, you got to be ready to hit it out of the park, preferably with a smile on your face and a can of beans in your hand. And remember, if Larry can survive a hurricane on pantry food, you can survive anything. So there you have it, folks. That's how my family and I survived for 2 whole months on nothing but pantry food. It wasn't always pretty, but we made it through and learned a whole heap along the way. Remember, prepping ain't about being scared, it's about being ready. It's about taking care of yourself and your loved ones, and having peace of mind knowing you can weather any storm. Who knows what the future holds? Maybe it's another hurricane, maybe it's a zombie apocalypse, or maybe it's just a really bad snowstorm that closes down the grocery store for a week. Whatever it is, I'll be ready, and y'all should be too. So go on, get prepped, stay safe, and remember, a little bit of prepping goes a long way. And hey, if you ever find yourself in a pinch, you know who to call. Larry's always got a pot of beans on the stove and a story to tell. Subscribe to SurvivalScope, stay strong, stay prepared, and I'll see y'all next time.